welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kat, and this year I've been traveling around the world. In July and August, I spent 6 weeks in Guatemala, and for 2 of those 6 weeks, I decided to go and study Spanish in San Pedro on Lake Atitlan. And honestly, this is definitely in the top experiences of my whole travel so far. I'm going to give you all the information you need so that you can do it too. First things first, choosing a school. There are loads of schools all over Guatemala, but the main schools are in Antigua and Lake Atitlan. And when me and my boyfriend were choosing where to study, we decided on Lake Atitlan pretty much purely because of the stunning setting. The classrooms in all the schools are outside by the lake, so you are literally, as you're studying, sat looking out onto this massive lake with big volcanoes. What more can you want? But there are multiple schools on the lake with this view, so to decide which one to go with, we actually didn't book ahead. We waited until we'd arrived at Lake Atitlan and we went and had a look around all the schools that we'd heard about, had recommended to us by other travellers, and then decided based on the feeling that we actually got ourselves when we looked around the school, because everyone is different. And for us, it was a really easy decision. We ended up going with a school called Community Spanish School in San Pedro because it honestly was the most amazing, beautiful setting for a school I've ever seen. I'll put pictures up on the screen now, maybe a little video, who knows. Compared to the others, it really stood out. Plus, it's worth saying the staff was super responsive when we arrived and asked if we could look around. Really nice, friendly, open, answering all our questions. We just knew that was definitely the one we wanted to go to. Next up is choosing your accommodation. So there are 2 options when you go to these schools. Choose to organise your own accommodation and just book into a hostel or hotel or whatever you want to do. Or you can get the school to organise you a homestay. I personally highly recommend doing a homestay. You stay with a local Guatemalan family. You'll have a private room. You can choose a private ensuite or a shared bathroom, I think. And the family cook you all of your meals, so you don't have to worry about food. It's all included in the price. And you get to socialise and practice your Spanish with the family 3 times a day at your meal times and form the most amazing special bond which you will remember for your whole life, and it's honestly just the best time ever. We had the best time with our host family and we were so sad to leave them. We still think of them now, although to be fair, they have new people coming in week after week, so I'm not sure they'll remember us, but we remember them. I might send them the link for them to watch this video, although they don't speak that much English, but hello Fatima, if you're watching. Okay, next up, you need to decide how many hours a day to study for and for how long. So you can study anything from, I think, 1 to 5 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week. And you can stay with the school for as long as you want. So you could literally stay for 1 week right up until 6 months or a year. But I would say most people study about 4 or 5 hours a day for somewhere between 1 week to 2 months. We booked 1 week just to try it out, see how we go. We ended up loving it so much that we booked in for another week, but we actually had a break in between. So after our 1 week, we went off and explored the north of Guatemala, and then we came back down to the lake for another week of school, and we requested to be back with the same family and the same teachers. Nothing was a problem, it was all perfect, and we loved it. Little side note, I did say most people study for 4 or 5 hours a day. For me personally, and I have a bit of a background with Spanish anyway, so I could speak a fair amount of Spanish already, we were studying for 4 hours a day. Now there's no way I could have handled 5. 4 hours for me a lot of the time was a bit of a stretch. I think I'd have preferred 3 hours a day, and I would definitely recommend for a beginner to start off with 3 hours a day. You can always go with your first week at 3 hours and see if it's enough for you, if you want less. The schools are generally very flexible as long as you give them some advance notice of any changes you want to make. Okay, next up you need to decide when you want to start school. Now this might sound very obvious, but if you decide, like us, that you want to study for 4 hours a day or even 5 hours a day, you might want to think about starting your studies on a Wednesday or a Thursday so that you don't throw yourself straight into a full week of classes, especially if you've just been traveling freely before, and then all of a sudden you're studying 4 hours a day. We ended up starting on a Thursday, so we had Thursday and Friday of lessons, then we had a weekend to take a break, and then we went back for our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that for us was absolutely perfect. Gives you a bit of a slow intro into getting used to studying again and getting your brain used to concentrating for 4 hours straight. And I would especially recommend that if you've never studied Spanish before. Okay, number 4, you need to decide whether you want to study in the mornings or in the afternoons. Most schools won't let you mix and match some mornings and some afternoons, so you do have to choose one or the other, and you'll most likely have to stick with it for at least a week before changing. We initially booked to do mornings because, like I think most people, we tend to focus better in the mornings. We're a bit more awake. It's when we do our best work is in the mornings. But the school actually only had space for the first 2 days in the afternoons. So we did our Thursday and Fridays as afternoons, and then the next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday as mornings. And after trying both of those, we actually both massively preferred studying in the afternoon. And I will explain more as to why we preferred that in the next point. So, next I'm going to talk about how the actual day runs. And a little side note, I have actually done a full day vlog of a day in the life at Spanish school in Guatemala. So if you want to go and watch that after this, you can. I will link it in the description. Okay, so let's say you're studying 4 hours a day, Monday to Friday, which is quite average, and you're studying in the morning. So school for you will start at 8 AM and you'll have 4 hours of one-to-one study minus a 20-minute break for water and a snack. And then you finish lessons at 12 PM. At the end of your lesson, your teacher will usually set you homework to be completed by the next day. So you'll then go home from school and have lunch with your host family, and then in the afternoon you'll pretty much have free time, but you'll need to do your homework, have lunch and dinner with your family. But to be totally honest with you, as I was saying before about mornings versus afternoons, when we were studying in the mornings for those 3 days, I was absolutely cream crackered after my 4 hours in the morning of studies. In the last hour of lessons, pretty much every day, mornings or afternoons, my brain was fuzzy anyway. Like, I was struggling to focus. Then I would get home for lunch, eat lunch and speak Spanish with the family. Don't forget you're practicing your Spanish because most of the families don't speak English, so you're speaking your Spanish at lunchtime as well. You get into your room after that and honestly, I would just collapse every single time. I collapsed on the bed and I wouldn't even be able to speak English, let alone Spanish, for like a good 2 hours minimum. By that point, it's like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and somehow you've got to muster up the energy to get your Spanish homework out as well. You also then feel like you're wasting an afternoon because you could be out exploring, but I was just knackered. There was no way I was leaving my bed or my room even. So I found it a massive struggle to then have the motivation and the energy to get my homework out and do my homework and then go and have dinner with the family. And because I speak more Spanish than Ollie does, my boyfriend, I was having to hold the conversation at dinner as well. And although I can speak Spanish to a degree, like my conversational Spanish is quite a low level at the moment. So the energy and brain power it takes to hold a conversation is intense, and I just really struggled, especially on a Friday. For this reason, I would recommend studying in the afternoons. So, how your day runs if you choose afternoons to study is your lessons will start at 1 PM and finish at 5. So you have your same 4 hours of study with just a 20-minute break in between, and you're a bit frazzled when you leave again, a bit exhausted and you want to collapse. And the good news is you pretty much can. You come home, you might be home by like 5:30, collapse on your bed for half an hour or an hour, then it's time for dinner with your family. All you have to do is muster up the courage to speak with your family at dinner, and then after that you can literally go and lie in your bed without feeling guilty like you should be up doing something. I mean, those of you that manage the nightlife after that, praise to you. Watch some Netflix and go to sleep. Then when you wake up in the morning and you feel fresh, That's when you can be productive, get your homework done, which works really well as a reminder of the lessons from the day before. And then you have free time as well, where you can actually go and explore San Pedro or whatever it is you want to do with your free time. You have the time and you feel fresh and ready and rejuvenated in order to actually use it. And I would just highly recommend to do it that way round. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, most of the schools have like a free activity you can attend in the evening that will also be in Spanish. Usually starts at 5:30, so everyone has finished studying by 5. If you've obviously studied in the mornings, then you have to come back to school in the evenings to do the activity, and to work up the motivation for that is quite hard. Whereas if you studied in the afternoons, you just stay there and go to the activity like from the school, with the school. So it's just another reason to study in the afternoons, in my opinion. The last piece of information to give you is the cost of these things. And obviously this depends on the school slightly, and prices obviously change all the time. So do make sure you go and check online on the school's website, or go to them directly and ask in person. But for most of the schools, you'll pay roughly around $200 a week for all of your tuition, all of your food and your accommodation in a private room with a private bathroom. And that's studying 4 hours a day for 5 days a week. So that's pretty much an average price. It will change depending on whether you are studying for 3 hours or 4 hours. And if you're staying long term at the school, like for a few months or so, then you may be able to do a bit of a deal and get a discount that way. Okay, that is pretty much all of the info that I can give you. If you do have any questions I haven't answered, please pop them in the comments below and I will be sure to answer them. Don't forget to click the thumbs up for this video if it was helpful, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more travel videos. I will see you next week with another one, and that's all. Goodbye!